Hey guys, Chef Hawks here, and so today we are talking about nutritional poverty. My son Jack, you can see him over on the right wearing the glasses, and myself right in the middle there, we are part of Troop 97 along with our family, and we meet over at Spirit of Joy, a local church, and we worked with them and an organization called Rise Against Hunger. And a few weeks ago, we were lucky enough to work with them to organize feeding for up to about 10,000 people. This is an amazing experience for all of us. And so this will actually go directly down to South and Latin America to help with hunger issues that we have down there. Did you know one terrible statistic we have in the world is that every 3 seconds someone dies of starvation? A fellow human being passes away because of starvation, a lack of food for them to be able to eat right where they are. One thing that we learned about though during this event from the organizers is that even though we have people dying of starvation around the world, we actually have enough food for everybody. It's more of a distribution problem that we actually have as opposed to actually being able to produce enough food. So this got me thinking about different issues that we have around the world, but also issues that we have right here in the United States. In the United States, while starvation isn't necessarily the thing that we see, hunger is. And this is a significant problem that we have to try and tackle. So according to feedingamerica.org, looking at the United States as a whole, the USDA tells us that more than 38 million people, including 12 million children, have food insecurity. We're going to look more at that. The pandemic has caused this to become even more of a problem, especially in communities of color, where we really have significant problems with people having food insecurity. When we're looking at rural communities, these have been hit even harder. The overriding factor here is that hunger in African American, Latino, and Native American communities is higher because of systemic racial injustice that we have to work on. I'm the culinary arts instructor at Lancaster County School District Career Center in South Carolina. As you can see just from our county, and when you look at the hopeinlancaster.org website, we have almost 20,000 residents in that county which are food insecure. It means that they have a lack of regular and adequate access to food. There are 21,072 children living in Lancaster County, of which 53%, more than half of them, meet the poverty income qualifications to be eligible for the free or reduced lunch program. In the county, we have more than 15% of our seniors who are not in the position to be able to feel secure about their food situation either. These are things we need to tackle. We're going to take a quick look now at a couple of excerpts from a TEDx video, which is specifically talking about food insecurity so that we can understand what it is exactly.
I come from a place of privilege. Every day I get to decide if my children eat fresh, local, and even organic food. I have the opportunity every day to teach my children to love a variety of food that's nourishing, full of flavor, aroma, and texture. I never have to worry if my children are going to run out of food, and I never have to put them to bed with an empty belly. Unfortunately, this is not the case for 1 in 5 children in the United States, and it's much worse in my hometown, where 1 in 4 children do not know where their next meal is coming from and often go to school unable to learn at their maximum capacity. I want you to imagine the last time you experienced hunger. Did you get a headache? Did you feel nauseous? Or are you like me and get aggravated, frustrated, extremely impatient, and just a little intolerable? Now imagine walking over to your refrigerator, opening it up just to see that it's completely empty. And you walk over to your wallet to learn you do not have money to buy food for the rest of the month. This is food insecurity. Food insecurity can also occur when a person does not have enough money to buy nourishing food. They might rely on pancake mix or instant noodles to feed their children every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This too is food insecurity. While food insecurity impacts everyone's health negatively, it is particularly crushing to children. Nourishing food is critical to a child's mental, emotional, and physical development. When a person does not have access to food, they feel shame, alienation, and even inequalities. They feel they're powerless over their food choices. As a registered dietitian, I've spent the last 15 years working with food assistance programs such as SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, Women, Infant, and Children, known as WIC, the National School Lunch Program, and many more. I thought I was empathetic to hunger in the United States. While I knew nearly 50 million people are impacted by food insecurity daily, I never took the time to be a witness to hunger. My misconceptions about poverty were completely wrong. I assumed that the majority of people who were poor were so because of generational poverty at the expense of taxpayers. According to the United States Census Bureau, 34% of our population has had one spell of poverty lasting 2 or more months, while less than 3% of our population lived in chronic poverty the entire 4 years of that study. In other words, the majority of people in the United States experiencing food insecurity and poverty do so because of temporary situations such as the loss of a job, a disability diagnosis, the birth of a child. My misconceptions were wrong, and unfortunately there are many people who share my same misconception.
Now we understand a little bit more about what food insecurity is. Now we need to look at more about what the quality of some of the food is that we're getting to eat.
Many health problems are related to poor nutrition and have significant effects on the digestive system. Most of these health problems can be linked to the long-term consumption of sugary and fatty foods, increasing our risk of being overweight or obese. This risk starts before we are even born. When pregnant women consume unhealthy foods containing excess amounts of sugar and fat, they are more likely to have overweight children and develop associated health problems. A good start to nutrition for a baby is providing them with breast milk. This provides the best source of nutrients and reduces the risk of infection, digestive diseases, and obesity. Babies fed on high-protein formula milk are more likely to suffer childhood obesity and are at an increased risk of adult obesity too. Young children who get the right nutrition are 10% more likely to overcome life-threatening diseases, become healthier adults, and have healthier families. Childhood obesity is rising at an alarming rate, increasing by almost 40% in the last 25 years. If current trends continue, there will be approximately 70 million obese children worldwide by 2025. More worryingly, weight problems can be passed from generation to generation through our DNA, creating potential major health problems for future generations. So, healthy nutrition in the first 1,000 days of life, including breast milk and foods low in sugar, will help protect you, your children, and future generations from digestive and other health disorders.
So not all foods are equal. We need to be able to find a way to not only feed people, but we need to feed everybody with quality nutrition. The CBS affiliate in Minnesota took a look at a survey of how often Americans dine out. So according to the survey, 56% of people say that they dine at a restaurant or get takeout or have a meal delivered 2 to 3 times a week. Fully 10% said that they eat out 4 to 6 times a week, but 6% said that they eat out every day. So who makes up this 6%? What we actually started finding was when we looked at this MarketWatch website where it actually had a JP Morgan study, that this was really shining a spotlight on exactly who it was that's spending so much of their money in restaurants. And it actually turns out to be the poorer in society. When we take a look at this chart, we can see going from left to right, from the bottom quintile up to the top, so the lowest income to the top income, we can actually see in the green right at the top there, that indicates who is spending the most of their income on food coming from restaurants. And this might be takeout restaurants, full dining restaurants, and anything in between. As shown in this study, in many cases, single-parent families or poor households are stretched for time. According to a 2014 report by National Geographic called The New Face of Hunger, they lack cars, rely on spotty public transportation to get them from job to job, and often face long commute times. Fast food is a quick fix when a parent gets home late and the kids are hungry. My students and I took a good long look at this. So whilst our concerns with nutritional poverty aren't the perfect setup and it's not necessarily going to take everything away, we did a study to try and figure out some ways that we could help. And certainly coming from our culinary arts standing, hopefully we'll be able to find some ways, some measures that we can figure out how to help society to put itself in a better position. In this exercise, the first thing that I asked my students to do was to start calling out different places where they go to eat. And so as you can see on here, this was my board in our classroom, and I had them write down the various different places that they may get breakfast, or they may get lunch, or they may get dinner. We then looked up prices for these just so we'd have a good idea as to how much it costs for us to be able to experience these different things. After my students had listed out the types of items that they would eat in a restaurant or takeout or delivery, I then asked them to choose one breakfast, one lunch, and one dinner. After that, I asked them to consider those meals and to consider how they could make something that would be not a million miles away from that meal, however, something that would be nutritionally better. And so they came up with some pretty good ideas. Just for an example here, we can see the breakfast from team number 1. They had the Chick-fil-A chicken minis, and so they came up with the mini chicken pot pie biscuit cups. So what extra did those have? Well, those had extra vegetables in them, which provides fiber and micronutrients. Team number 2, they had the sausage cheese McGriddle, and so they came up with some nice fluffy blueberry Japanese pancakes with sausage, egg, and cheese. So this has the blueberries especially were a big thing that they wanted to add in there. Got lots of micro and phytonutrients that were a bonus in there. And then when we look at our lunches, so we had from the Zaxby's Tender Combo, our team number 1 came up with the honey garlic chicken with roasted potatoes and whole wheat rolls. And then looking down to team number 3, they came up, instead of having the chicken combo from Chick-fil-A, they came up with a deluxe grilled chicken sandwich with baked fries and water. And so having the baked fries and the grilled chicken instead of the fried fries and the fried chicken, you would actually have the lower fat and then higher fiber from the wheat bread that was in the bun. And then looking at the dinners, so we have Grandma's Cafe, their chicken Alfredo, replacing that with a wheat pasta version that adds higher fiber, and the sauce that goes with that Alfredo, they found a lower fat version. So there were lots of things on here where they were fairly easily finding some improvements to them. Next, I then challenged our teams So take that breakfast, lunch, and dinner that they had chosen in replacement to the fast food or restaurant options, and I asked them to add those into a recipe cost worksheet. We do this quite a lot in culinary arts in our Pro Start course. It's part of what we do. But so this helps us to break it down to understand exactly how much something like this would really cost in the real world to do. So just as an example here, we can see that team number 3 decided for their breakfast they were going to make a poached egg, tomato, and avocado toast breakfast. Very nutritious breakfast to start the day off. And so just taking this as an example, if we look at the loaf of bread, so there are 22 slices in that average loaf of bread. They went with a wheat loaf of bread. That costs $3.12 for those 22 slices. I can't just buy 1 or 2 slices, I have to buy the loaf. But this helps us to break down how much it would cost for that meal. So for this meal of 4, each slice of that toast costs 7 cents. And then so looking across, our recipe is going to call for 8 slices of bread, 2 for each person. So that will cost us 56 cents for those slices of bread. And so we do this for every single ingredient, for the eggs, the tomatoes, the avocados, the wheat bread, and the oil. And then we just follow on down at the bottom here. We can see that the total cost for feeding those 4 people is going to be $7.75. So we just divide that by the number of people that this recipe is making it for to get our portion cost of $1.94. The next team we looked at was the deluxe grilled chicken sandwich with fries and water. This was served on wheat buns. And so we did the same thing again, where we started taking first ingredient there was the chicken breast. So for a 1.36 kilo or 1,360 gram bag of chicken breasts, the purchase cost was $7.18. So we took that $7.18 divided by the $13.60. That gives us a 0.005 cost. That's actually per gram is the unit that we're using on this particular item. We need 700 grams of the chicken for the 4 portions, so that's going to be $3.50. Same thing when it comes to the wheat buns. It comes in a pack of 8. They cost $3.34. So $3.34 divided by the 8 gives us a 42 cents per wheat bun. We need 4 of those wheat buns to make the family of 4 happy, and so those 4 buns will cost us $1.68. And so we work this all the way through with those oven-baked fries, the tomatoes, the lettuce, and obviously for our water, they actually took bottles of water. However, most families, if they need to, they could probably drink water from home and it costs significantly less. But they did want to include all of this in there. Farther down here, we can see the total recipe cost was $10.10. We divide that between the number of portions on the recipe. It was for the family of 4, and so the portion cost is only $2.60. Lastly, we're going to take a look at the dinner recipe. This was from team number 1. They made the teriyaki chicken over rice with steamed broccoli. Now, some of their improvements, they actually put some quinoa in with their rice in there to give it a higher protein content, but using vegetable protein in there. But they work through much the same way as we did with the previous 2 recipes, where we just take it one item at a time, all the way through for every single ingredient item, working out how much it would cost for each one, taking the purchase cost, dividing that by the purchase unit that you have to purchase it in, and then that gives us the unit cost, whether it's in grams, whether it would be in ounces, whether it would be in individual items. And then we worked out the amount needed from our recipe, multiplied those 2 together to give us our ingredient cost. So as we work our way down to the bottom here, we can see for the total recipe, this was $7.89. This recipe was for 2 people, so per person, portion cost was $3.95. We then put together this analysis of the data that we had collected from collecting up, first of all, the actual items that the students suggested that they may go out for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and then the homemade versions which they came up with better nutritional quality. We now wanted to take a look at not just the nutrition, which is a massive factor that drives issues in our society, but we also wanted to see how would this financially work out. So by placing these into our data boxes here, we can see, just taking breakfast number 1, the fast food version was $3.75. The homemade version was 81 cents. That gave us a savings of $2.94. Breakfast number 2, as you can see, the fast food version was $3.29. However, now on our homemade version, this one was actually slightly more, $3.84. It would cost us an extra 55 cents per portion on this one. And then we looked farther down, all the way through all of our lunches and all of our dinners in the same way. What we discovered here was, in general, the vast majority of the time, we could save money, and in some cases we could save significant amounts of money depending on which restaurants and which food we would be eating. For the sake of this analysis now, to simplify it, possibly oversimplifying it, but to make it manageable for the students to be able to do in a reasonable length of time, we took those 3 meals for breakfasts, for lunches, and for dinners, and we took the average savings between those 3 and we placed them directly underneath. So the average savings on our breakfasts would be $1.15 per person, for lunch $5.46 per person, and for dinners $6.07 per portion. This isn't surprising that these are the amounts and how that flows, just because we generally spend a lot more for dinner than we would for lunch or then for breakfast as well. Now we can actually start to really look and see the actual effect that this could have on some families, especially low-income families. When we look over to the right-hand side of our data analysis here, we're now going to see what the effects will be depending on the multiplying effect of having a family. So we're just going to say it's our student by themselves, just one person for right now. They're not married, they don't have kids. And we're actually going to say, for right now, this year, they're going to cook for themselves on 7 days of the year. As you can see, this would give their family, themselves, their savings of $88.76 on average, rather than going to the restaurants or the takeaway areas that they may have chosen previously. One thing that I did as I was looking through here, just to make sure that my students understood the significance of what this can draw, is I then took what the average South Carolina income was for 2019. That was the latest data I could find. So that was $23,366. When we look farther down, so we then have to take out income tax that we all have to pay. So what the real take-home pay for the average income of a South Carolinian is $18,624. So just in this one example, we can see that $88.76 that the family saved, that one individual, that was actually equivalent to 0.5% of their average annual income. So it's a fairly significant savings for not that much work. But now let's take a look and see what happens when we look at the multiplying effect of this. Let's say if we were going to say our family is 3 people, mum and 2 kids, and unfortunately it's a single parent family. And so in this factor, we're going to say that we're going to cook half the time at home. We're going to go with 180 days that we're going to get food from home. Now all of a sudden we can see that our family can actually save the average of $6,847.20 by just eating at home half or more of the time. That's the equivalent of more than 1/3 of your average income for the South Carolinian. This is a significant savings. And the thing that I challenge my students with at this stage is, what could you personally, or what could your family do if they had an extra almost $7,000 in their pocket? How much of a difference could that make to a family every single year? If that family can't go on vacation because they can't afford it, could that be a vacation? I would say that could be a pretty good vacation. Or if that family struggles with transportation, is it possible that they could put some money towards a car to try and get themselves a little better off, being able to have a better transportation? That could go a long way towards that. There could be all sorts of things that could happen for that family if they could get that additional almost $7,000 a year. My students and I came to several conclusions, and they really hope to be able to make a difference in their own communities as they go through their careers. So very often there are not necessarily even excuses, but just reasons why these things can't happen. Some people may say that they just don't have time to make that food. What my students were then challenging people to think about is, well, how many hours extra did you have to work in order to pay for that fast food that, as we've seen on here, is so much more expensive? Or if people say, well, I can't afford to eat healthy food. Well, as we've proven in here, making food from scratch can make it an awful lot cheaper. Or if you say, I just don't know how to cook. Well, maybe you need to try, experiment a little, maybe have a little fun doing it. This is something that my culinary students feel that really could make a huge difference in society. If you have the know-how, then you can pass it on. And I've certainly implored to my students that going forward in their future, they now have the capability and the know-how to follow recipes, to sometimes write recipes, but to at the very least, they should be passing this information on to friends and family and on to their future family, to their future children, to make sure that they have the ability to do these things. They also agreed that family and consumer science, or the old home ec classes, really probably should be more of a core subject in our schools because it makes people more sustainable. They all agreed that we should be able to eat well, live healthier, and to be able to be more self-sufficient, and in the meantime, become wealthier through all of this. Thanks so much for listening.